Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another fantastic episode of Stories Around Azeroth. With me, Pete Titans Creed Nevercoat, joined as always by the benevolent gnome one, Mr. Frazley Tastic. And joining us today is Cy from Scrubs versus the World. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's always a pleasure. Always good to meet new people and spread the word of Warcraft. For those of the people who are new to the channel, new to the podcast, or don't know who you are in general, why don't you let people know what you do?
So I do all kinds of things, but I am mainly a player of the World of Warcraft. I've been playing since Classic or Vanilla. Sorry, gotta get my terms right, or I'm gonna get barbecued. And also. I also jump between both games. But anyways, started up my podcast last year in March. Just trying to, A, get better myself, and B, kind of help folks who don't know where to go, trying to provide another resource to kind of gather everything together and give people who are kind of middle of the road, kind of casual players, a chance to find this stuff without having to go through and try to read and interpret what's happening on, say, like Icy Veins or something, even though that site's pretty easy to read. Some of that stuff's out there is kind of confusing. So I try to bring it in, process it, and give it back to the folks in a way that's easy to understand. That's kind of my goal. Kind of the, not thesis, but the root of my show is kind of based in that conversation you have with friends when you yourself are trying to get better, and they give you that little chunk of information that they're like, oh yeah, well, I've been doing this for 3 years and you've been playing with me and you didn't know this. And you're like, oh, well, thanks for telling me now after 3 years. But hopefully we can capture one of those little things that somebody else is doing that might help put somebody up to the level they want to get to.
Yeah, it makes sense and everything else.
Yeah.
You had a good week though in Warcraft?
I had a wonderful week in Warcraft.
What have you been up to?
In a heroic raiding guild called the Knights of Chipotle.
Ah, that's a brilliant name.
Yeah, the story of, if you want to hear the story, shameless plug, I apologize, but go back and listen to the Guild Foundations episode, and our guild creator was on there, and he tells the story of how we got the name the Knights of Chipotle. It used to be the Wang Gang. But that was
even better. That's so amazing.
But Blizzard actually emailed one of the co-founders and said, sorry, you can't do that. And they tried to say, well, my last name's Wang, but it wasn't Wang. Obviously, it's not Wang because they could see the sign up. But he actually reads the actual email Blizzard sent. He still has it, which is perfect. Brilliant. But yeah, we cleared up to, let's see, Vexiona. But we also got Raden, if that makes any sense at all.
So was Raden a first kill for you this week then?
We actually didn't kill him this week. We killed him last week, or 2 weeks ago. And we decided to extend lockout because that fight almost broke us emotionally. That fight was brutal for us. I don't know why.
Did you... I presume you were also... Because I was talking to Raven and EJ from, obviously, Girls Gone WoW last week, and they didn't do Raden back in Mist, so I presume it's a fight that you didn't get to experience either?
No, unfortunately. I wish I could have. Back in Mist, we actually went away from the more intense modes of raiding and went to flex mode because we had a whole bunch of people that wanted to play with us all of a sudden.
Makes sense.
So we were a 10-man team going into that. We actually didn't do Dragon Soul because in Firelands, we lost a main tank and then everyone was super angry with all kinds of things. And we just kind of took a break. Like, hey, let's step away. Came back and missed, hit it hard, had a whole bunch of new friends join us, and we've been going ever since. So
that's pretty cool. So yeah, your group has been mostly the same group of friends all the way through then?
Pretty much. Right now, there's only, I think, 2 of us since the beginning that are actively raiding right now. But we have a group chat on WhatsApp where all the original members are still in there, and I'm sure they'll come back at some point. So
That's pretty dope. Yeah. So obviously you've done your heroic progression this week. Did you get any? What was your progression kill this week?
So this week we did the eyeball dog, Shadhar.
Yep.
We killed Il'gynoth. That was exciting. That was one of those. I died like halfway through the fight. So I watched our guild. I didn't kill. I was part of it. I was there in the crowd, basically. And then we got to the Inquisitor and killed her.
Oh, so it's a lot of progression kills this week. Then was Drestigathan a progression kill for you as well?
We got him 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Right after Radan, we went and...
So you skipped Shadhar and just went straight for Drestigathan. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy ones. That's cool. That's a lot of progression. So how many nights a week do you raid?
Just the one. So we raid for 4 hours at a time. Yeah.
That's not bad. I mean, you're 9 out of 12 on a 4-hour week. That's
Oh, yeah.
pretty decent.
No, our guild leader actually is a high school teacher. Or not our guild, but our raid leader. So he comes through and he reads the strat. He does like the quick strat or quick guides, I think it's called. I can't remember what the website's called. But he does that and then he puts it down like the cliff notes. And he's like, okay, we do this, 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 and this. We do a tick, we see what happens. And they're like, okay, well, that didn't work. So now we have to adjust this and tweak that and do this. And then it's up to the rest of us to kind of pay attention.
That's cool. Have you cleared the place on normal, or have you just gone straight into heroic?
We got to Ny'alotha, and Ny'alotha about, like, that was hard. That was really hard. So we were like, well, we're to the point where we can go and start heroic. If we want to come back to normal Ny'alotha, we will, but let's go through heroic, and then we just have kept going there. So we just haven't gone back yet.
That's fair enough. How have you found the raid in general?
I really enjoy it. Oops, let me re-say that. I really enjoy it.
That's
Sorry.
pretty cool. No, it's fine. Yeah. Any favorite fights that you have in there?
I think. Let me think about that. I think my favorite one is Hive Mind. Just because I get to do a lot of AoE stuff. So since I'm an elemental shaman, I get a lot of explosions on the screen, and that's always fun.
Oh, you did die on Inquisitor right at the end.
I did.
We were having a conversation about this before. He wasn't sure if he died or not. But you killed it though. That's always very good. Oh goodness. Yeah. No. I think from a rating perspective, Ny'alotha doesn't stand up to some of the other end raid tier type things in terms of storytelling and some of the raid fights. N'Zoth is most definitely very hard when you get to it, but it's simple rinse and repeat. Like it's
Yeah. Well, I mean, you notice that we have gotten up to this point now, only raiding the one night a week for 4 hours.
yeah.
I mean, a couple fights are super hard, like the raw dens and stuff like that. But once you figure it out, it's actually not that hard, which was odd. Because
I'd agree
the
with
time
that.
we killed it, and honestly, it was just a function of getting to the chain lightning piece and doing that mechanic correctly. Once we figured that mechanic out, then we just killed him like we knew what we were doing the whole time. So
Yeah, no, it's very good to, especially to hear on a 1 night 4 hour schedule. I mean, I raid personally 2 nights at 3 hours. Had to put it out, but now we're down to like clearing the whole place on heroic in like 2 hours. Like we did it this week in just 2 hours. Got so much free time on my hands.
yeah.
Frazley wonders why I managed to get in 25 Mythic Plus in a week sometimes, I tell it. It's because I'm just done. Mr. Frazley, speaking of you've had a busy week as well.
Yes.
What have you been up to, sir?
So I attempted a solo vision run, and let's just say I was a little distracted when I was doing it. So I got 1 page.
Oh, yes, you did tell me about this, didn't you? Yes, you weren't paying attention to things.
No, I was streaming, and I was kind of more attracted by the stream. It's the same like when I had an iron that I had a friend pop in who wanted to do a WoW episode of their podcast while I was doing iron in voice chat. Voice chat and irons, unless you're both doing irons, is not a good idea.
What was the one thing I always said to you when I jumped into voice chat? Don't panic. And concentrate on, look at your abilities and everything else.
Yep.
I'm glad you're not doing Mecha Gnome as an iron because, oh my goodness, the amount of times you've died.
Oh, yes.
But you were doing something else this week as well, it's including Mr. Sai as well.
Yes. So Sai's been helping a lot of scrubs like me and trying to help us get some advice. So today I was a guinea gnome, or a gnome pig, or
A gnome pig.
Yeah, gnome pig.
Gnomepig.com.
Ooh, is that taken?
Yeah, he joined. So sorry to jump in here, but
Yeah, no, it's fine.
for my show, since I'm on a 2-week release schedule, I've been trying to do supplementary streams in between. And so right now I'm working on the Holy Trinity series, where we talk about each leg of the rating roles. And so hopefully we can help folks, they're thinking about switching to DPS or healing, they can listen to episode 21 and 22. And then on my Twitch channel, the VODs are still up where you can go check those out. And it's just like covering basic stuff, like basic raid stuff. So, don't tunnel stuff, get out of the things, how to set up your keybind, stuff like that. And Frazley's been kind enough to join, and we've been kind of put him through the ringer a little bit. And like today, we're doing the healing episode, and so our challenge was to keep him alive. And the first pull, in the first trash pack, he just goes down. But to be fair, that trash pack is brutal and kills even my raid team like every week. So it's no different on LFR.
Which one was it? Was it the big named mob, or was
it
just
was the
trash?
blood pools as you go down into
Yeah.
See Shadhar, but the problem was, since it's LFR, there's zero communication. So the tank's just like, yeah, we're going in. And then he goes in and everybody is dead. So it wasn't like Frazley did something wrong. It was that tank did not do the right thing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, even the amount of times I can tell you on that pack where I've ended up on heroic and I'm just ended up just tanking tentacles anyway.
Yeah,
It's
that's pretty much what happened.
I think the trash down there is not the hardest, but it's most definitely the most annoying trash in the dungeon.
It is.
and the
Except
boss
for the
that I
eyes.
died on.
Everybody misses the eyes.
Oh, yeah. We had 2 eyes pop on us in the run.
And then on the mob that I died on, it was that shout, and I did not get out of the shout in time, and it just took me down.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Was this your
Everybody, though.
was this your first excursion into Wing 3, Fraz?
Yes, because I did Wing 1 actually 2 weeks ago with Sai.
Yep.
So how have you found it? Because I presume have you done Wing 2 as well, Frazley?
Nope, I've not done Wing 2.
Okay. Wing 2's going to have what? Wing 2's going to have Hivemind and Raden in it, isn't it?
Probably.
Yeah.
Unless they went up to Inquisitor, went that road.
Well, oh no, yeah, no, that's a good point, actually. I completely forgot Wing 1's going to be on those first 3 entry bosses. Okay. So how have you found, between Wing 1 and Wing 3, the bosses in there, Fraz?
I actually found Wing 1 was pretty easy. There's that one boss where if you don't communicate on which one's the real one, that could be a difficult thing in LFR. But Wing 1 seemed more like a raffle stomp at times. I mean, whereas this one, there was a lot more I had to be dodging and going between stuff.
Yeah, you did a really good job, though.
Oh, thank you.
First time in.
It is really interesting because from a heroic perspective, like this wing is more of the punching bag bosses. Like Shadhar is literally a DPS check, Drestagath is a DPS check, and Ny'alotha is the DPS check. So these are more punching bag bosses than I think the first 3, to be honest, because Mount is don't kill yourself. Oh my god, Skitra is communication based, and then Rathian is just he's entry level. There's like not really a lot to it. Don't stand it bad. Wing 2, I'll have to have a look to see what Wing 2 on LFR is, actually, to be fair. It'd be interesting. But yeah, have you been up to anything else, Mr. Frazley? I know you've been leveling your Mechanome. What's that up to now?
That is up to 100. So I am now over in Legion. I rescued Muzi and went over to the I did that one quest in High Mountain that I always hate because of with Oro. Oro goes in there, and you're like, Oro, don't go there. And all of a sudden, and he gets stoned to death.
Jesus.
And mine glitched out when I went out there, so I had to do that twice. And it's like, no, Oro. Oh, okay, redo it. No, Oro.
Jesus Christ. But you're having fun though. You're still plodding along. When do you reckon you'll get your Mechanome to like back up to BFA levels?
All depends on I want to do the order hall stuff for mages because I've done it before but never finished it and I've never got my mount. So now I decided when I go into Legion stuff on classes I've not gotten all the order hall quests for, I'm going to work on that. So that's slowing me down. And like Kunlai, I got that lore master, and I also got I got Dragonblight with Michael. So I got 2 lore master achievements this week. So that stuff is slowing me down, but I'm having fun with it.
Well,
so
that's the main thing, isn't it? Like, you got to keep yourself going. As it were. Yeah. Conversations in chat about killing ourselves with Infinite Stars. Yes. Completely agree. Because Infinite Stars comes with the lovely tentative of the thing from Beyond. And that thing can get quite evil as well. So I've had, I wouldn't say a busy week. I'd say more a successful week. My biggest accomplishment this week has been to go with the 5-mask Orgrimmar. I did 5 masks Stormwind solo. So that's another thing off my bucket list on the main. It was interesting because I did 2 runs after the raid this week because we finished like super early and I really don't like doing 2-hour streams. So I just finished it off with a couple of runs. My first run didn't go too well. I popped Cheat Death really early and I'd used all my orbs by the time I got to... Because I went to Umbric first in my first run and then I went to Spymaster Shore. But I did it the other way round in my successful run. And I don't know if it was just because of more luck or just the fact that there's more elites in Shore's area that I had an orb left by the time I got down to Ilaria and my Cheat Death, and I got down there, better run and everything else. It was very weird because I didn't take the AoE spec with the laser beam from Mechagon that just comes down. And so I took the pet, which helped on Umbric because he just runs to Umbric and then just interrupts him because there's something in melee with him. But otherwise, it was fun. I don't know why. I'm literally down to just farming mementos for the mount, the cosmetic appearance on the back, and sockets now. So, and then it's literally just doing the cloak for several weeks to get it to 15 and beyond. Speaking of which, they finally dropped the news on how much we're going to get per week. And I'll be honest, I'm not happy. I have stated my disappointment in specific places. But, you know, I was looking on the really positive side of they were going to give us 10 a week. And on the really low side, they'd give us 5 a week. Because in my brain, the math was like, once we get to rank 15, we'll have 70 corruption resistance on the cloak. And I thought 5 a week is 6 more weeks. That literally puts us at 20 weeks overall from when we get the cloak to maxing it out. But then someone chipped in and said, well, the cloak caps at like 50. So, and we're going to get 3 a week. So it's another 25 weeks after we finish the cloak to max it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, even if they did at +5 a week, that over halves it to like, you know, another 10 weeks on top to get it to max resistance. And I'm like, that I can live with. You know, I feel like that. But 25 weeks at 3 isn't going to make a dent to anybody who is getting lucky with corruption drops and everything else.
Right.
So I'm kind of disappointed in that. But otherwise, I mean, I've just been on the achievement cleanup. I finally got around to finishing off the dungeon meta for the Mythic
nice.
Zeros. And I've got my mount for that finally. So that's out the way. We cleared off all the loose achievements in Mechagon. I think the only one we've got left to do is the Feat of Strength for doing hard mode with no deaths. Why does that entertain you, Frazley?
No, not you. I'm thinking of me.
Fair enough. I mean, it's just a pleasure thing because that gets you rank 4 Vision of Perfection and everything else, and it's just a bucket list thing, I think, really, for BFA to get done. There's a couple more things that are on my bucket list, and we'll talk about that in a bit because I've been really focusing on a list of stuff to get done this expansion in the next 6 to 8 months, essentially. But otherwise, I've been leveling my dwarf. I'm trying to make sure I don't fall behind Frazley in leveling, and I do one day of like a batch of leveling. I think in 2.5 hours I got through all of Warlords, and then in about another 4 hours I got through all of Legion, like combined over a couple of days. 2 invasions and all of Val'sharah just got me to 110 from 100. So, and now I'm just logging in whenever there's an invasion in BFA, and I'm just getting like a level a time. And I made the mistake, Frazley. You know, way back when we said about what your first island, like the expedition should be, and I said it should be Vol'dun, because as an alliance, the Vol'dun landing affects the invasion daily quest and what you can get and phases you out for one. I forgot about that. Did Zoldazar first, and the invasion was in Vol'dun, so I missed 2 world quests. So I missed 2 world quests, which means I missed the refresh on the hour XP buff as well.
Whoops.
Yep. But it's good because I completely forgot that you could buy potions for the medals, the Warfront battle medals at like 5 apiece.
Mm-hmm.
I completely forgot they were a thing, to be honest. And I think do they work all the way from like 1 to 120?
Yeah. I leveled a rogue with those XP potions from like 42 or something like that to 60 in like a night and a half. Yeah.
Oh,
I should probably use those more.
Full heirlooms and those babies. That's a good time right there.
I probably wouldn't have enough for medallions.
They're 5 medallions a piece, mate, for a potion. They're not expensive at all. You could literally go and do the 5 world quests in the Warfront area, and you'll have 5 a day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Easy. And then if you do the chests, you get like what the hell's the rep called? But you do the rep, they also give you some in there too.
Oh yeah, if you do 7th Legion, you get a Paragon box. You get like 20 in there. Which is fine. But I've got everything. Like I bought the last heirloom from the vendor as well. So it's just like I have that. I've got the mount after doing Heroic Darkshore, so I'm done there. It's just, I mean, it's just stuff to do, really. Mm-hmm. I forgot how long doing the Horrific Vision takes. It's like 20 minutes at 5 masks on like the... Oh yeah, then I messed up and jumped in the canal. Did you know, by the way, I'll tell you this, I found this out 2 weeks ago. So there's 2 rares that are always up in the Horrific Vision of Stormwind.
Oh.
There is, if you're in Old Town, if you actually get to Old Town, in the bar, there is the barman, and there's a whole bunch of mobs in front of him. That's always open. But there's also a corrupted canal beast, which is like one of the old portal beasts.
Yeah.
And that's a rare as well. I only found that out about a couple of weeks ago, just randomly.
Pretty cool.
What is that? But yeah, it's there's a lot of fun to be had in there and everything else. Oh, yo. So yeah, we'll talk about so we had a really good discussion last week on what keeps us playing. And Frazley and I think it's a good conversation, especially with having new guests to the channel and everything else, and being in the portion, because otherwise we're just going to be sitting here twiddling our thumbs because there's no news about Warcraft, and everybody's waiting for Shadowlands Alpha, and I'm sure we'll find a way to talk about Shadowlands without spoiling stuff when that's available as well.
Well, I mean, did you hear about when they added, and did you also hear that they also added...
Absolutely. I heard about all of this through its encryption and everything else, Frazley, through all the data mining that people have managed.
Oh, good, because I thought when they announced that was incredible.
I'm just going to have a cast where we start talking about Shadowlands, and Frazley is literally just going to bleep everything.
Yeah. Oh, what do you mean about... Because like when I talk about...
I can't believe you would say that on stream, Fraz. Unbelievable.
I know, it's disgraceful behavior.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to put out a whole Twitter post about that.
Yep, that's it. I want an apology on Twitter out to the world.
Well, you will not...
episode of Frazzlecast.
and get one of those. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I can imagine. So yes, we're going to talk more about what keeps us playing. As I mentioned, I've got a bucket list, and I'll go into that. But Sai, since you're a guest, I'll let you go first. Like, other than what you do for Scrubs versus the World, your Twitch, your podcast, your website, and everything else, is there anything that you have as a goal that you want to get done before the end of BFA, or just anything that keeps you playing Warcraft?
Yeah. So for me, I have been kind of up and down on this expansion. So when I first started, I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed questing. And then right around the time Classic came out, I was really down on the game. Like I was this close to going to full-time Classic just because I was tired of the Azerite system. I was tired of the necklace. Another stupid grind.
What point of BFA did Classic come out? I forget, because Classic's been out for what, a year and a bit now?
Yeah, 8.2 dropped in July, in the end of June. So we were right as Nazjatar had launched. Classic.
So we would have had essences at that same point then.
Yeah.
Right. So I was thinking like, okay, I got to see what 8.2 has to bring. I was really excited for Nazjatar because I like Ashara as a character.
Yep.
I like the lore behind it. I think I was excited to see Mechagon and all that stuff. And fortunately, I really enjoyed it. So my tune changed quite a bit. I still play Classic. I dink around on it, but it's more of like I just want to go in and relax after a long day of work or something and just hang out. That's kind of how I play Classic. I play it super casually. But as far as what keeps me coming back to this version of the game is I really like where they went with 8.2 then into 8.3. So I'm actually having a lot of fun with it. I think the corruption gear is really interesting. I don't know if I like how they are implementing it, but at least they're trying something. So they're saying that we want to get away from stuff like, tier sets and whatnot and try something new and make it fun and interesting. An effort was made. Like that's as far as I'm concerned. Like they tried something. Did it work? The idea of Azerite on paper sounds great. The actual implementation of it, I don't know. I miss my tier sets, but I think overall, the gear selection now is very confusing. You have to use raid bots or something just to get an idea of what you should be equipping. Yeah. And I think that is a problem. You should be able to look at a piece of gear and go, this is an upgrade or this is not an upgrade. And I got a drop today. I got some gloves. Now, granted, it's on my resto spec, not my elemental spec. And my pawn said it was like a 6% upgrade, and I'm wearing 465 level gloves and a 430 drop for me. And I was like, this does not feel good. This should just be a piece of transmog gear that I can break down to get, the extra crafting materials from the scrapper, as far as I'm concerned. But with all that said, I'm still having fun because I found a way for me mentally to get past that. I'm not trying to min-max. I'm just grabbing whatever the highest eye level is and going for it. If there's a trinket that gives me something fun, like the dragon scale, I have the LFR version. Wings pop out of my back and I cast faster. That's fun to me, so I'm gonna play with it. Now, fortunately, it's my best trinket for now. Besides the the Insanity Ripper, wherever the hell it is, off of Skiptra.
Oh yeah, I know the one.
Yeah, so I got that one too, and so I'm rocking those two right now, and I'm having fun with it. So that works for me. But I want to try to get a tank to max level. Or max level, but like raid geared and attempting to do like normal runs and stuff. I've never raid tanked, so I'd like to try that. And I think that right now is a good time to do it. So I have a Blood Death Knight that I'm going to be working on here in the coming weeks. And I want to see if I can do it. I've never done a raid tank before, so figured why the hell not. And then I also want to try to get my Mythic Plus runs down so I can improve my IO score so people will stop declining me. It's starting to piss me off, but we'll get there. But yeah, so for now, I'm just going through and enjoying the game for what it is. It's not perfect. I don't know if there is a perfect version out there. and I'm just trying to find the things that I enjoy and sticking to them. So I'm doing my world quests. I like doing those. I don't know why, but I like getting the. I think it's because I fill the reputation bars and I get those extra cachets and whatever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've been doing.
So would you say, because you're a content creator, that the content creation at least helps you feel more engaged with the game?
I think so. I think overall, like I kind of joke with my younger guildmates. I mean, I'm not super old, but in video game world, I'm,
The ancient, yeah.
ancient. Yeah. You got to put
I
me
know
down
what I mean.
soon because my reaction time isn't even close to what it was. But, I joke with the younger crowd and just talk about how I used to be super good at this game. I used to kick a lot of ass, and now I suck a lot of ass. Yeah, exactly, Capo. Okay, boomer. But I'm that old guy you meet at your job who, was the greatest high school quarterback to ever live, or I don't know what sport you'd insert sport. They're the greatest at it when they're 18 years old,
Yeah.
and now they're terrible. They're garbage. They're garbage players.
I can relate in my dancing. I'm as I become older. I'm turning 30 this month, so I know I'm young, but I feel I've been doing this since I was 17, and I'm tired and exhausted. I've
Yep.
moved it down to like 1 day a week now versus like my 5 or 7 days a week I used to do it, and I'm just like 2 hours now tires me out. How did I get to this place?
It's all those beans you're eating, Fraz.
Yes.
Yeah.
I completely get what you're saying. And I don't want to harp on too much about what could make 8.3 and the rest of the game more engaging. I don't think you can make it so much engaging with what's available, but you can make it more fun to play. There are certain things that they could do, and I'm not going to state it because I feel like I'm just banging a drum every week if I keep saying it, but we all know what they are, and I think...
Why doesn't this?
There you go, Frazley does it instead. But stuff like the cloak, that feels like at 3 a week, it's just gonna essentially just add even 25 weeks. Like, if they're essentially saying that this cloak is gonna push us all the way up until like 9.0 pre-patch, which is what I think a lot of people are taking away from this 25-week math, it's insanity. Like, why not just up the amount that people can get, let people do it, give people time to play their alts and do everything with the limited time they have, because, and just, I think somebody put it best as open the floodgates with everything. Like, it's the same with corruptions as well. Like, I'm not sure if we mentioned this last week, but a good idea I think we were having a conversation about was if you cleansed a corruption, you could bottle it to reuse it on something else.
Ooh.
That'd be cool.
Obviously you can't resell it or anything, and you can't stick it on a BOE to sell. If you put it on like a BOE, then it would bind to you itself.
Bind to you.
But if people got Infinite Stars 3, whatever, or they got a haste or a mastery, well, probably not a mastery pot. Nobody likes mastery. But if you got like all of your haste is boosted by 9%, which is rank 3 of it, and they bottle it, and then they get a decent drop from heroic whatever, and they decide, well, this is good, and I've got the spare corruption space to put haste 3 onto this, I'll put it on there. And then I'm like, well, this is good. I know I'm not going to get anything better because I'm not, that Titanforge is not a thing anymore. I'm not raiding Mythic. It's the best statted thing. And I can go and save up once I've done all my technology and the horrifics, and I can put a socket on it. It's got the socket. It's got it's got decent corruption. Worst comes to worst, then you bottle it later on, and a better corruption comes along out of your weekly box of disappointment, or from the raid, or somewhere else. I just feel
sure.
I feel like there are ways that they could have tackled it that's more, I'm going to say consumer friendly. It's probably the wrong words to use, but consumer friendly is probably the better option. That's easier for people to use in a game environment.
Right. Well, and I also think that Blizz is kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place here, and to go full Blizz shill on you guys. I think the problem is we have the old guard. I'm calling myself part of the old guard. I like how the game was, right? And then we have the new guard, the faster paced, the newer player. They want it a certain way, and we want it the way it's been, right? Or at least a version of the way it's been. So I think for them, they're kind of, I mean, anything they do, they can't win. That's kind of how I feel at about this point for them. Now, I totally agree with what you're saying. Having a 72 corruption freaking drop on week 2 sucks because I want that. Now I can't because I'm going to turn red immediately because I'm full corruption. They should have thought about that, and maybe as the cloak levels, then you start unlocking the better pieces. I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and to go from what your point, I mean, to me, that sounds like a common sense thing. Like, okay, yeah, here we're gonna give you rank 1 from this cloak rank to that cloak rank, and then rank 2 from here, and so on. But yeah, I got a piece early, and I was like, hell yeah, we can't even wear it because I'm an
Things
elemental
from
shop,
beyond,
and that
the extra damage, less
yeah,
healing. Yeah.
that damn circle is huge. And then I had it past. It was the one even after that. Once I put it on. So I was like, I can't even wear this thing.
So in the Mythic Zero group we were running for achievements, you know the third boss in Snake Temple, the air elemental, lightning
Yes.
air elemental thing.
Mhm.
So our warrior went, "Can I just put on like as much corruption as I think I can get away with?" And it was, I think he had like, it was like 300 odd corruption. It was like 78% extra damage taken and 78% healing reduced. He turned around and he got the eye on him instantly, and it said, the circle is so large I can't get out of it." And he was just taking like so ridiculous damage. It was funny because his
Oh.
health bar was just going down and up, and then it just took too much damage at one point, and he just fell over. And it was hilarious to us. It was Mythic Zero. We didn't care
Right.
because we're just achievement, and we didn't. There was nothing on that boss to do, but it was just
Yeah.
like, it was just hilarious, and it's just. It's annoying because as much as I turn around and go, this would be good for the game, this would be good from the game, I look at it at a personal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
As I've said on many times before, Frazley opens my mind up onto how people look at it from a casual perspective is not the easiest way to say it, but a different perspective. Because obviously I can pretty much say that we're 3 levels here. Like, I'm further than you, Si, you're further than Fraz, and then Fraz is very entry level, doesn't raid, but enjoys the content, you know, essentially. But then, again, it comes back to a conversation I had the other day. We look at it from a personal perspective, sometimes a player perspective, but we don't look at it as from a dev perspective. And a dev perspective is always going to be, how do we keep our players playing? And by doing these time gates, as they were, they keep the player going on a week-to-week basis. And it talks about time gating the content, and we don't want that because we pay for the game and we want everything that's available in the game to be open to us. Now, obviously, we all say that, but we look at the game and we're very much, well, we know we're not going to beat everything on day one. You know, there's still a progression factor when it comes to raiding, and we're not all going to have our mythic 15s on day one either, you know? So we take it and we're like, but everything else that I can do solo, I want to be able to do solo. You know, everything that should be within my fingertips, I want to have the ability to unlock and get straight away. But going back, I mean, it's about looking at it from what we want to what would be best for the player base as a whole. Because if I turn around and go, bottling corruptions is a good idea instead of just cleansing the item. But then if you look at the mythic raiders, like the world first raiders and everything else, who will, week 1 before mythics open, they'll farm the hell out of mythic plus because they can push that because they're really good at playing the game and everything else. They might get lucky with all the corruption drops and they go, well, I can just bottle this and then put it on the gear that drops. You know, I can abuse this system. And then we go back to a point where I believe it was Mists when Reforging was still out, and they turned around and went, the main reason we're removing Reforging is because we don't want people to leave the raid, work out the stats, reforge the gear, and come back in. You know, because that's what's going to turn out if they did bottle that. So that's probably why you can't. From a dev perspective, I don't know. I'd have to get a dev on here and go, why didn't you think about this? And they were like, well, we didn't think about that. It's a good idea. And it's just like, it's stuff like that, and it's annoying because you know that some of the devs used to play the game, and it astounds me why they don't think about how they would play the game with such a mechanic in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Now that you say that. Well, and I think a lot of it too, like I think what they need to do, this is what I think they need to do. They need to get back to Warcraft. Like what made Warcraft great originally, right? I'm not doing some stupid MAGA thing. Like this is just like when Vanilla came out, it was popular, right? Then Burning Crusade came out, and then Wrath of the Lich King came out. Like what were those things that made it awesome?
Yeah.
And
so, I mean, as I said to Frazley, I think it was like episode 1 or 2 when we first started talking about Classic. Classic came out at a very different time. I was playing Final Fantasy 11 at a time, and that was punishing and everything else. Like, you could only solo level up to level 10, but then you were forced to group level to do anything you wanted to do. You couldn't do quests or do anything out in the world without a group past level 10. And if you died, you lost experience. And that's how it was. MMOs were punishing back then to keep you playing and keep you engaged. Azeroth, fucking Warcraft came in at a point and it was just like, it was the same game, but it was much easier. You could solo everything. That was the big draw to people. It was still, I don't want to say punishing, but it was pretty punishing. There were less graveyards in the world. The questing points between A and B, the flight points were long. There was not enough monetary points in the game to make it do things. So you had to really go somewhere, and you couldn't afford your mount at level 40 and 60 without having an investment in the game and knowing what you're doing. So you were really still walking and taking flight points, which is a cash generation. If you want to go from Stormwind all the way up to the Plaguelands to do your end game leveling, well, see you later. You've got a half-hour, 40-minute walking trek to do if you don't want to spend money on a flight point. Yeah. But the game has evolved because it's evolved with its buyer market, which is the people that have been there since the beginning. And the people who still play are there because they've got character investment in their main characters that they've played. My main was my priest all the way back from vanilla all the way up until I ditched it at the end of Legion and moved over to Monk and now Demon Hunter for the expansion, because it's not fun to play. And that's the problem, because classes weren't even that fun to play in vanilla. Hell, I leveled as Holy and Discipline as a mixture because I had no idea about the game. Right. And again, that's something else, and it's been proven with the classic servers, is that because people have played the game, and hell, people who've had private servers have played the classic for 15 years, because that's what they like, and they know the content, and that's why they went and cleared Blackwing Lair in 40 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the things that I would like them to take from that, I'm not saying turn current WoW into classic, right? We have classic. It's already there. I'm saying take those things that felt rewarding from classic. So when you were leveling up, you felt like you were progressing your character, right? Well, now at max level in Battle for Azeroth, you get a blue drop that has the right corruption on it. You're replacing raid gear. And that doesn't feel like a nice progression curve. That feels like we're going forward, then backwards, and forward, then backwards. And so I think if we can get to a point where the content itself, is a little more difficult at first, but as you gain power, you start to clear it a little easier, then that gives you that rewarding feeling of, hey, I'm moving forward with my character, life is good, but coming out of the box and, leg drop and everything, but just by looking at it doesn't feel good. Like you don't have that. Like to go to a learning analogy here, you learn the most from something. You remember something more clearly, the more you have to struggle with it to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So if you're learning something new, like I play guitar, for example, and the songs I remember are the hardest ones. And it's that struggle. Then once you finally get to that point of, hey, I figured this out, now it's cemented in your mind, and that was awesome. So I remember Wrath of the Lich King fondly for raiding because I never raided before until that point. So I was learning how to raid and I struggled mightily in that expansion. But now that I've got it kind of figured out, there's a lot of things that I don't remember very well because we clear it in 4 hours one time a week, you know?
I think that's why Karazhan sticks out to a lot of people as well, because it was their first foray into raiding. I know it was for me. Like, I stepped into ZG when I was like 62. No, yeah, 62. I went into ZG just while I was leveling casually through TBC because I wasn't playing properly until I got to endgame. But Karazhan was my first raiding thing, you know?
Yeah,
and I just raided from there. And Karazhan is remembered fondly by a lot of people, even by people who raided vanilla.
Well, and like I finally remember Molten Core, and you could say that that's probably one of the most bland instances by today's standards.
Right.
There's a big room with like a bunch of enemies packed around different things, but I fondly remember it.
Because it was hard at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm
But
not
it was-
saying like crank the difficulty up to 11. I'm just saying like just get that feeling of, oh crap, I'm struggling. Now I got that piece of gear. Now I'm kicking everything's ass. And just kind of get that nice progression curve. I think Tips Out did a thing for Classic and the difference between current WoW and Classic WoW. And he talked about the progression curve not being, it was like a
think
nice...
The same thing, and I think it lasted all the way up until Wrath specifically, is that if you wanted to... No, TBC changed it. But if you wanted to do raiding in Classic WoW, you had to still go through every tier. You had to go to Molten Core, you had to... Or get carried by people that had it, because the gear was, you know, monumental. You're not going to go straight from tier 0.5 all the way up to tier 3 in AQ. You had to actually go through those levels, especially if you wanted to raid properly. You still had to do it. You had to go get your nature resist gear for AQ and everything else, and various things. You couldn't just jump in there. But with the way that gear scales these days, don't get me wrong, as someone who's got alts and did alts in Legion, I super appreciate the way the gearing structure is now. But then in TBC they introduced badges, and you could get badges from doing the dungeons, and you could get entry-level gear that scaled as further patches came out. But TBC is a different beast, because Tier 4 and Tier 5 were available on day one of the expansion opening. You know, it wasn't Karazhan on release, Gruul's Lair and Magtherida's Lair all on release, and then Serpent Shrine Cavern and the Eye down the line. It was all 5 of those instances open at once.
Right.
Well, and one thing, not gear wise, but one thing that they're bringing from Classic into Shadowlands that I like, in Classic, it feels like every level you get new spells, and by condensing us to 50 spells up to Shadowlands and giving us new abilities, it's at least going to feel like you're gaining new abilities every level.
As long, like, I agree with that, and yeah, that will feel cool, but as long as they're just not giving us abilities that we've already had taken away from us.
Well,
Like, if the 0 to 50 that they change it to is everything that we have now plus stuff that we're missing, and the 50 to 60 is new stuff, I don't want to go... what would be a good analogy? I don't want to be regaining stuff from 50 to 60 on classes that I've had pruned away from me on the 1 to 120.
okay, I can see that, yeah. And they may have to do, well, yeah.
No, they're absolutely going to do it. That's how they'll do it, because they'll be like, but because they'll the expansion changes where they'll bring all of the rebalancing. It'll allow them to bring demon hunters in line with everything else. It'll allow them to rebalance all the numbers, because instead of starting at 100 and then having a 20 levels and having that difference, and how everything's going down to level 1, so everything's going to be balanced. But it means that they will absolutely prune stuff, and they'll absolutely put stuff back in. But that's it's part of the problem of having a game that's gone so long, is that the game has got so much stuff in it, and gear has changed to a point where it's more than just stat sticks. And Preach did a good video on I think it was something in the last week, of the biggest thing that they want to fix in Shadowlands, because I'm quite sure we've all run into the problem with a world boss or one of the epic scale battlegrounds where the lag is just ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Because of all the calculations the game is trying to run, because of all the new spells, all the multiplications, the trinkets, and now corruptions on top of that, as well as essences. And it just adds so much that the servers can't take it. Now, if they want to keep adding stuff on top of that, that's fine, but then they need to fix the server-side stuff. Other than that, they need to prune everything back and put it to a more classic thing where the only numbers were all of your stat sticks with an on-use trinket, maybe, rather than all of these, when you do spells and abilities, you have a chance to proc something. Take away all of these heirloom things that carry you over in an entire expansion, power items that just have all the billion procs on it and everything else. And, you know, because think about it, like, the Heart of Azeroth alone is 4 passive procs and 1 on use on its own. Now you've got the Cloak, which is a potion proc at rank 12, essentially. You've got normal potions on top of that. Then you've got your trinkets. Then you've got weapons, if you've got a weapon that does something. And then you've got corruptions on top of that. Like, as a demon hunter, if I had the best weapons, it would be the Underrot weapons, because they've got the stacking damage dot. But the best one to get is a corruption on top of that, and having a socket and having all of those numbers and everything else. It throws too much dice on the table, which is the analogy that Preach used, and it's a really good video to look at how much, because it's there was something that came out on social media recently about the scaling of money, and the person used rice to do it. I'm not sure if you saw it. Like, it was 1 rice equaled 100,000, and then they did it, and they scaled and they showed it. It was a really big, went really viral. So Preach did the same thing, but showed the calculations with dice. And it's the same analogy, essentially, for what you needed. And it was a really good way to do things, because a lot of people can see what you mean if you use a physical demonstration. But there's too much. Like, you're talking about going back to a classic way, and the biggest way to go back to a classic way is to dump world quests, because world quests are endemic with artifact power and everything else. Scale back all the numbers, but then the problem becomes it's not as fun because you're literally just doing a rotation. And the funniest thing I find is that all of these people that are saying all of this needs to get scaled back to fix the lag problem. But I want all of this stuff to make me feel powerful and feel good, and I want it to make me feel like it's my choice. You know, my reasoning is the thing to do it, and that's why they want a lot of on-use trinkets back, because they're like, well, I've got this power gain coming up, and I can time it with this ability. So if I pop this trinket and everything else. But again, another problem is how slow the game feels, because the game is slowed the game right down with the way that the global cooldown, the GCD, is right now, and it's only fixed by stacking haste, which is why haste is so good for everybody, because it makes the game feel good. Whereas going back on a Final Fantasy 14 as a good analogy, they have half of their abilities on a global cooldown, and the other half is off the cooldown, but you use them to weave in, essentially, as an ability. And I think that would feel good. What's the main class you play, Si? Like,
so I'm a shaman.
Shaman.
Yeah.
So, what if you had your rotation between your shocks all off the global cooldown, but they all share like they don't all share a cooldown. They have individual cooldowns, but they're off the GCD. And then you keep your flame burst is the big fireball thing, isn't it?
Lava burst, yeah.
Lava burst. So keep lava burst and your shocks off the global cooldown, but they each have like their own cooldowns with it. And then you rotate with lightning bolt, chain lightning, specific totems if you want to weave in. Because, and I can only speak for, well, the way that Final Fantasy 14 classes work is that they all have like a specific rotation. Monks specifically, and I'll use monks as a good example, because they're like, well, you've got to go from this spec to this spec to this spec, and it's done by following a rotation of 3 abilities, and each of those does different things. So one will put up a buff that will go around after you do your rotation twice to reapply the buff and everything else. But then you have a lot of big hitting abilities which are on like 20-second cooldowns, which will go around by the time you've done like 2 whole rotations. And I think stuff like that would, yeah, okay, it'll probably make it feel like more like Final Fantasy 14, but would it be better for the health of the game by having stuff, a lot of damaging abilities off the global cooldown, that if you use it effectively, the player can feel better by doing it at the right time?
Yeah. I mean, that's one way to do it. I know for Elemental, like I'm loving it because there's a lot of excuse me. There's a lot of procs that go on. So I'm not really doing a rotation necessarily. I'm doing a lot of things to kind of prepare to move. And so, shamans are very turret-like DPS class and healing class. So when we move, we're hurting. So we have the lightning ability. I am drawing a huge blank right now. That lets you fire off 2 chain lightnings or 2 lightning bolts. And then there's, I go with Ice Fury. So I can drop, I think it's like 5 frost shocks. So I try to get those dialed in before I have to move. And that's kind of the mini game that I have to deal with. I think overall, though, I think the biggest problem that Blizzard has right now is back when they went away from the old trees, they tried to make it more like Diablo.
Yeah.
And is this, like Beliar had a great video where he asked, what is WoW now?
The ARPG conversation. Yeah, we
right.
mentioned it last week, yeah.
So is WoW an MMO, or are we moving it to an action RPG? And if we're doing that, do it. Like go full in and move it to an action RPG. But if we're not doing it, then we have to go MMO and we have to try to just get the base MMO piece back. And
the biggest problem, sorry Fraz, I'll let you get a word in a minute, because it's still lost its RPG feel. Like, and I think a big problem, and it's very echo chamber when it comes to it, is the whole champion thing, and that needs to get in the bin, because here we go. It's a good analogy. It's used from The Incredibles. When everybody's super, no one is.
No one. Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
Well, I mean, one game that I think does it's fully pay to win. It might be a bad example, but Black Desert Online, you at least don't. You feel like you're not like the supreme best, but you're doing something. I mean, and I think maybe getting rid of the champion would also foster more of a community. That we're not all trying to be like, I'm trying to be better than you, Si or Pete. That we're all coming together.
True, and again, going back to how can we make the game feel more like classic? The biggest thing there was is the community stuff, because again, forums, Discord specifically, they weren't a thing back when the game launched. So you really had everybody who was in the game, and then
there were still forums, and they were still accessible.
Yeah, but they were shite.
Oh, aren't they still shite?
They were literally terrible.
They were awful. Cesspool doesn't even describe it.
But if you what's the best way to put this? As the game grew, more servers were accommodated to take up the server load. Now, that's been changed a lot with Warlords onwards and how they capacitate the server load because of how bad Warlords launch was. But because the game has dwindled in numbers by, I think the last running guess people are at is about 2.5 million right now. Concurrents accounts, like actual people are paying for accounts. And that's now split between live and classic. There's obviously more people playing the game, but there's a lot of people that are in classic that pay for the accounts. So that number's skewed. But that number's dwindled so much, and we still have so many servers, and they've tried to fix it by like doing server clusters. And the biggest way that it's ever going to change, like if they want to continue the server cluster idea, is to go all RP realms now shared, all PvP realms are now shared, all RP PvP realms are now shared, and all normal realms are all shared. Sure, everybody's going to still have to have their server tag because it's the only way people are going to keep their names, and they don't want to lose that bit of identity. But fuck me, it would make the world feel more alive by seeing everybody on those clusters. It's the only way that you can make it do it. And, general trade, it would solve a lot of things, I think.
Well, and I'd even say, I go one step further, give people the option to go cross region. Because I know lag's always mentioned, but just say, hey, just like when you're playing at Fortnite or Rocket League, you can choose if you want to play with other consoles. make it where I choose to be to other regions with whatever that's going to cause. I think that would add more, because look at it. I can't play with you, Pete, because of our regions. I mean, there's a barrier between us, and that does make it feel closed off.
Yeah, WoW it's really annoying because WoW itself is so outdated right now against anything that counts as a modern MMO. Like, if anybody went to go and pick up, and I keep going back to Final Fantasy 14, I could choose to play on the Japanese servers if I wanted. I could choose to play on the American servers I wanted.
Now,
because the game updates on all servers at the same time.
Can you play on the EU servers and play with people, or do you have to change what realm you're on to play with them?
Oh, we lose them again?
Yeah, probably.
It'll be in the recording, so that's the good thing. So on the EU side, can you play on the US realms on Final Fantasy 14, or do you have to?
No,
okay.
I could go to the Final Fantasy website, buy a copy of the game, and it wouldn't matter, because if I choose to set up my character on a US server, I could play with the US guys, as long as we're all on the same server.
Now, okay, now, like, can you be on the EU data center on Final Fantasy 14 and play with me, or do you have to switch?
No, I have to be on the US data server.
Okay,
I have to choose to go to the play on the. So there's a bit.
But you have that choice.
Yeah,
I have the choice. Like this whole thing of still being forced to play on EU when I've got a lot of people on US. Like, if it was all merged and we had the ability to, I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. If I still had the ability and I didn't have to choose, like, I've got my EU characters, sure, but if I didn't have to go and purchase an American key in order to play on the US servers, like, I should be able to just play with the US guys if my time allows for it, and if, they want to let me play with them. But as it stands now, I've got to put so much money into the game and pay for 2 versions of the game in order to do that.
Yeah, and
right.
And where I'm even thinking is just say, like, okay, I in my social options, I will accept that it might be more lag, it might be higher paying, but I'm not rolling a new character even on the EU. I'm just saying, hey, let me play with my EU friends. Yeah,
it's even if I had the ability to just add people to the Battle.net and I could just chat with them, that would be so game changing on its own.
Yeah. There are times I'm like, I wanted to Mr. Pete something. Oh crap, I can't.
Well, yeah, you just have to send it to me on Discord.
Oh, what's this?
Yeah. Does anybody want to add anything else onto the topic before we call it a day?
I think the biggest thing that I am seeing, and I think the three of us are working on it. At this point, Blizzard, they're struggling to add the community section, but what we can do is bring people together. Like this podcast, we're bringing people together. My podcast, I'm bringing people together. My streams, Cy, with your podcast and streams, you're bringing people together. And Pete is too over in the EU. He's bringing all his EU friends together, and they're over there, and I'm keeping all my US friends over here on my stream. But I think we need to be the ones to create that. And
yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is find the thing you enjoy that you like to do. So for me, I don't have a lot of time on my hands. I'm a dad. I work full time. I'm doing podcast stuff for some reason. And, I like to jump in, do a couple, like the Heroic Visions are great solo content stuff. I enjoy that. I'm trying to focus more on the positive things that I do like rather than the things that piss me off. Because if I did that, then I'd be right there. I'd have my
all be
torch
miserable bastards, wouldn't we? Yeah.
I would be creating videos with a whiteboard that says everything that's wrong. Look at how Blizzard is.
That's right.
Oh, gee, I wonder who you could be emulating there.
But I think also it's not a bad thing to voice your concern with it because you have the passion for the game. And ultimately, like, I'm not trying to say like, hey, just ignore it and it's hunky dory. No, definitely get your opinion out there, because if someone at Blizz watches this and they see what you just talked about as far as the Oceanic and the NAs and the EU servers playing together, I mean, that's a big deal. That's a big deal to us players, because I would love to play with you and have you on one of the streams that I do and have us go kill Frazley in a raid somewhere. I mean, that would be so fun.
I'd have to take for him and just like drag a mob that cleaves over his head.
You know,
Life grip him.
that would be fun. In Borderlands 3, when you play with Twitch, Twitch can become a mob. I think one time Cap became a mob, and Spaz and I killed Cap. No, it was Teleroid. It was not Cap. Cap gave us a loot pinata, but Teleroid we became a raid boss and we killed Teleroid. That would be kind of cool. And wow, that whatever raid you're in, if you're streaming it, the boss name just changes to somebody.
Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately games are for fun and we're supposed to enjoy them. So I'm hoping that with Shadowlands coming through, Blizzard figures some of this stuff out. And like you're saying on the leveling piece, they don't just go, well, here's the things we get killed from you a long time ago. Merry Christmas. You know, it's done in a good way that feels good. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I'm with you. And that the interviews that I've read, it looks hopeful. I'm always one that I do take a lot of interviews more at, I believe what they're saying in the interviews, and they did say they're learning from Classic, and I feel that it is, but I'm hopeful. Like at BlizzCon, I talked with some different Blizzard employees, and they did not give me inside information, but at least I could tell they love this game, and they want what's best for it. I mean, and that they want it to be a game that we all enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I think we have pretty much run past our time for today. So thank you for everybody who has joined us live. If you haven't caught us live, thank you very much for joining us on the vidcast or the podcast. Cy, where can they find you around the internet if they don't know who you are?
So I am on Twitter at Scrubsverse, and then you can find my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Cyrub. That's CYRUB. And then I'm working on getting a website going, but I'll tweet all that stuff out once it's ready. But keep your eyes
Make sure you're
peeled there.
following Cy on Twitter. His account's been above his name all show, and it will be in the description as well. Mr. Frazley, as always, where can they find you around the internet?
You can find me on Twitter doing different tweets throughout the week at Frazlytastic. You can find my podcast, well, one of my thousands of podcasts at gnome.podcast.com. That's like my longest running podcast, and the one that is like the longest duration episodes of. That's at gnome.podcast.com. I have a short memory, so if I already said that. And you can find me every day doing weird antics in different games at gnome.live.
Brilliant stuff. As always, ladies and gentlemen, you can find my main account at Titans Creed on Twitter at Gaming Phoenix if you just want the stream and video updates. Otherwise, you can find us live doing some streams, whether it's the podcast or other various gaming things I do, twitch.tv/Project Phoenix Productions, or you can find this in video form over at youtube.com/Project Phoenix Productions and podcast in all the usual good places on a Wednesday. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and until the next time, we'll see you later.
Be awesome!